Everybody wants to make a living on YouTube, but the reality is there are a lot of monetization opportunities that creators just aren't taking advantage of. So today we're going to uncover some of these as well as walk through some best practices to earn more as you grow on YouTube.
Hey, welcome to the Video Creators Podcast presented by vidIQ. You know how you put a lot of time and energy into your YouTube channel for not nearly enough growth? Yep, we get it. We are here today to help you change that.
Hello, creators. How are you guys? Welcome back to another Video Creators Podcast brought to you by vidIQ like we do every Monday. Today I'm hanging out with Ingrid and Blake. It's just been Halloween. It's the day after. Did you guys have a spooky Halloween night or no?
I mean, my last night was pretty low key, but I think we mentioned this in the last podcast too, Sam, when we chatted, but I went to a haunted farm attraction. And let me tell you guys, the entire weekend I had nightmares.
A haunted farm in Canada sounds absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, and this is it wasn't as bad as what I expected. I figured I was going to get chased around. There was a lot of just jump scares, but the worst part came after because every night I went to bed, I literally had a nightmare. And then the Saturday night, I watched a Mr. Beast video, the one with the lasers that just came out. Really great video. You should watch it. That night, I dreamt I was in a haunted house that Mr. Beast put on. So it was just double the horror, but with YouTube themed. So this is the first and last time I put myself through that much torture. I told some of my creators what I did. They're like, somebody who has anxiety, why did you do this? I'm like, I question myself every day why I decided to do this.
I could never, ever do that. I have sweaty palms just thinking about it. Yeah, can't do it.
So guys, we work with creators all day, every day. I know you guys have gotten this question, or maybe just this comment as much as I've gotten it, but we like to just sort of open some of the conversation with creators talking about goals and what are we moving towards. And a lot of times what we hear is, I want 100K subscribers and I want my channel to be my full-time job. And I don't know about you guys, but usually my follow-up question is awesome. That's great. Totally. This is super awesome. How are you planning on monetizing? What does that look like? And usually I think this is sort of a myth. Usually it's AdSense. That's what it's going to be for me. And I'm not saying it's a myth where, in the sense that people aren't successfully doing that. I think it just takes a big channel to do that full time. So I kind of just wanted to talk through, what our experience has looked like talking with creators, how we navigate that conversation. So maybe we can start there. For you guys, how do you normally navigate that conversation with those creators?
I think it's really understanding what the ultimate goal is. First, is there a business tied to it? Because that makes things different.
Absolutely.
And a little easier, quite honestly, to monetize. But if, like you were saying, it takes a massive channel to monetize, I want to clarify that around AdSense, yes. And maybe not massive channel, just massive views.
Yeah. Specifically massive, I'd say watch time to massive, just from an views. AdSense perspective.
Yeah. Just from a pure AdSense perspective. I think the thing that is a little bit of a myth for a lot of people is they think just because I'm going to get the views, the money's going to be there. Well, a little niche dependent.
That's true.
Different niches pay different in AdSense. Do advertisers want to advertise, in your space? And then what are they willing to pay for that? On top of that, I've seen it from all different niches where you don't necessarily need, 10, 20, 30, 100 million views in order to make a lot of money. You can do that with less, but you need to be in a space that, pays more at this time. And who's to say that that's always going to be the case?
I know. Who knows what things might look like?
AdSense is volatile.
I was just about to say, that's kind of the other thing. If you're looking to not be stressed out, yes, it is passive income, which is great. It's absolutely awesome.
Is it though? I don't know. I'll push back on that.
Yeah,
passive
I guess.
Income? There's a lot that goes into putting out a video.
It depends, I guess, on how evergreen your content is too. I think maybe I would say if there's a in between I guess active income, if that's even a term, but between active and passive, where of course it's going to get better and better the more that you're uploading. But if you want to take the vacation It's not like you're directly trading time for hours kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But it is very volatile. It's really unstable. It's hard to bank a full income 100% on AdSense.
And you can, but what I've also heard from some creators I've talked to is, they moved from living paycheck to paycheck to living video to video, and that's the same trap they fall into. They were trying to escape. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys feel like are maybe some low barrier to entry monetization options? Because, and I'm not sure about you guys, but like a lot of times when I start having this conversation with creators, it's sort of, well, it's just AdSense or nothing, right? Like that's kind of all I can really do with YouTube, which I think is another misconception. Like there's oftentimes way more lucrative options at your disposal, like different levers you can pull that a lot of creators just don't really know about them yet. So yeah, what are maybe some options?
I don't know, people.
It's a tough. I was going to say it's a tough question to answer because you really kind of need to know what the goals and the potential off YouTube is. Also, go ahead, Blake.
Yeah. I was going to pretty much kind of say the same thing. It's hard to know, but it also depends on what and people need to start viewing themselves as a business at the same time too. I think people are just we view the biggest creators as the only way to be on YouTube when there's so many people you don't see that honestly probably could out earn some of those people and not even realize it. So viewing yourself as a business, viewing yourself as you can offer value and trying to figure what that may be. Because a lot of people just turn to merch too. And merch can be a great thing as well, but there's a lot more opportunity out there than just merch. And even doing research even within your niche or even outside your niche of what people are doing to make income, because you really don't need. Everyone shoots for that 1 million subscribers so they can make all the money in the world, but it's like that number. And I think Tim mentioned on podcast before too of like, there has been channels where he's worked with 1 million subscribers who makes $100 a month. So it's not like it's going to guarantee you the money anyways.
And then he also does the flip of that too. He talks about, the insurance channel that had a couple thousand subscribers and was making $2 million.
Yeah, I think it was 50,000 subs he mentioned. Yeah, I remember that podcast.
Yeah, there's a couple real estate channels I'm working with who like you don't need a huge audience if you can just get a couple people to book.
You need the right audience. You need the right audience.
Work with real estate channels who have less than 10,000, and they're like, I'm doing great. I'm pulling all the clients I need from my YouTube channel. And I'm like, I'm doing fine. Like they want to grow it obviously, but like the model exists outside of the platform for monetization, right? And I hear from every creator big too as well. It's like think of AdSense as your icing on the cake. Don't think of it as your sole provider because it's so volatile too. Like it can play a big role, but it also can be hindering if something happens to it at some point, right?
I think one of the things that a lot of people don't think about, and I've worked with so many creators long term, so really knowing their channels inside and out, seeing how much they make month to month, different niches, the cost of making content.
Yeah.
And that's great to bring in 5 figures a month, 6 figures a month. But what does it cost you as a creator, a dad, a mom, a time-wise, business person? Is that where your energy is best spent? So are you getting the best return for your time, or taking a little bit less and then putting efforts into, broader ways of monetizing? I think that is a healthier way of maybe looking at monetization in general.
Yeah, I agree. What if, maybe just to make it practical, like what if you were sitting down with a creator right now and they were like, I would love to have more monetization options past AdSense, but I just don't even know what to even consider. Could you maybe walk through like what are maybe some options for this person?
Sure. Well, it depends on the niche. This is such a dependent question. But some of the things, that are quite interesting are, monetizing your audience in some way. So is that having a Patreon or doing channel memberships? And Patreon has made a lot of very interesting changes just recently. So it may be worth looking at for other people. But again, that's moving people off YouTube to another place. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. So you also have channel memberships. Now, the difference between that and that's monetizing your audience. Let's say you want to do behind the scenes. I actually am a patron of Van Neistat and Johnny Harris. Have been for a couple of years now.
Good choices.
Actually, and what do I get in return for that? I just am a patron because I want to support them. I love their videos. That's why I'm a patron. Johnny Harris, he shares his scripts, which is really cool, or he'll run titles and thumbnails by his audience ahead of time.
Oh, that's
Sometimes
cool.
you get to watch content ahead of time. I've supported lots of creators that way, but it's fascinating that you may have, a channel that has 10 million subscribers, but yet you only see, 1,000 or 1,500 people supporting them in Patreon. So it's not necessarily also so easy to do.
Yeah. I think also too to keep in mind, don't just pick the one avenue, pick multiple outside of the platform too, right? So because like we could say go and make a course, but that may not be the only thing to focus on. There's other things you can too. So try to, what's the saying? Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Try to think of other places to put them too, right?
Yeah. I would also try to look through the lens of who is my audience and how could I give them the most value? And sometimes that looks like video form if it's a membership and it's behind the scenes access to things like that. But when you think about like the real estate channel, they're going to be able to give more value to their audience with like a one-on-one call to help them book the vacation or buy the house. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And if you look at a lot of creators on YouTube that actually do these breakdowns with bigger channels, a lot of them like to do the breakdown of how are you making your money,
right?
Which is
those are so
great.
fascinating. I love watching those.
They are
I don't know
always
about
fascinating to me, and I always think about it too from a video creator's perspective. We didn't have all our eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
When Tim really started making 5 figures a month, he only had a couple thousand subscribers, but that's because it wasn't going to be an AdSense because he made almost nothing in AdSense, like most people. It was really offline. In the sense of, doing consultations like Sam had talked about, or having a class, putting out, a book, 30 Days to a Better YouTube Channel at the time was a downloadable PDF before it was like a real full-fledged course, so you could do things like that. There are lots of different ways. The one thing that I would recommend to anybody who's looking to monetize anything offline, even if you have the tiniest fleeting little thought of doing this is something you want to do today if you have not, is start a mailing list. Because you are 100% in control of that. Patreon can go away tomorrow. Everything can go away tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to say YouTube could go away.
Exactly. But you could be demonetized.
Yeah.
Oof.
Right?
Yeah,
and AdSense goes away tomorrow. But a mailing list you control. And so even if you have the tiniest thought, start one now. Now is better than a year from now or 6 months from now, because you could be sending somebody to a PDF or some free downloadable, valuable thing that your person wants. And that way it gives you options should you ever want to launch a book, launch a course, sell merch, whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah. I think, regardless though, there's a lot of options. I think maybe a misconception we run into a lot too is that I need to withhold value and not share that on my YouTube channel and only share it in my paid programs. And like even for us, like our video creators, we give everything away. Like we talk about everything on this podcast. What really we're monetizing is the structure of it's giving you a really easy, concise way to go through in order, good organization, going through all of these practical things. Yeah. And then like really too, having some skin in the game and like paying for something, oftentimes that's what's going to allow I need it too. Like that'll actually give you the accountability to get even more value out of it.
I'm curious, what monetary level makes you execute?
Oh, for me personally, to buy something?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question. That's interesting. I think everybody's in a bit of a different place with this. This is actually something more recently that I've been prioritizing because I've kind of, and maybe this is just more of a personal side tangent kind of a thing, but I've always had a bit of a hard time investing in myself and more of, let me just go the free route, I'm just not going to try to spend where it matters kind of a thing. And me and my wife, Stephanie, both were kind of the same, but I actually probably the best example of us stepping out and investing was Video Labs back in, gosh, what year was this? 2017, 2018. That was kind of the catalyst to our introduction into the video creators world, now the vidIQ world, way back then. But that was sort of the first real sort of let's invest in ourselves and try to make this thing happen. And it landed us jobs, so it paid off.
It did. But what's funny about that is, and that was at a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
Back then.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing for me. A product has to get into, 1,000 or more in order for me to actually show up and complete it.
Yeah.
If I pay $100 or I pay $200, for some reason, that's not to say that I won't. It depends on how much motivation I have, but if there's like a little bit, like you said, there's more skin in the game. It's a little bit more painful to part with my money.
Yeah.
And so for some reason I show up psychologically.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For whatever that's worth for somebody out there thinking about courses.
Yeah. And don't undervalue yourself either. I think people will do that as well too. I think a lot of people will just undervalue their course. I think Tim said that too when he started doing consultations. He was like, charging $50? And he's like, what am I doing? Right. Yeah. So it's like, know your worth, know your value, and be confident behind that too, because you never know how much people are willing to pay to have their problems solved too.
Yeah.
And that also doesn't mean that you can't start somewhere lower like he did
no,
too.
100%. And I think it's the best place to start. I know like from friends of mine who've done graphic design or that, freelance, it's like, let's start by you being the cheapest for a little bit and then slowly building yourself out so you can get the reps in, get your name out there. So, and again, same leading in for both ideas into the brand deals, like get your name out there, do things for them, whether it be a free product review, kind of get your skin in the game. You can have a lower rate at first, but know your worth eventually. Like, okay, at some point you are in control and say, I am worth this much. If you want to utilize my audience to promote your product or whatever it may be, be confident in the value that you have to bring.
Yeah. I think that's so important. Like knowing how much is your time worth? And I think, Ingrid, you touched on that earlier too. Like when it comes to the balance of the video creation and then the business side of things, and then like you probably have a really busy personal life with your family and maybe you have kids and like all kinds of things going on. So like, what is it worth to you for your time to, monetize certain things? Like at what threshold is it just not worth it? Whether it is the brand deal or maybe a consultation or something like that, pricing yourself in that way is also really valuable too.
So this is going to be different for every single person listening. So maybe you're just new to YouTube and you just are trying to get monetized, or maybe you have a business, and you have something offline. I think that kind of setting realistic goals for yourself is an important thing to think about also in this conversation. Because first you actually have to get monetized on YouTube.
It's true.
In order to make AdSense.
Yeah.
And that takes a little bit to get there. I got news for you. And I know that when we are recording this, Shorts is not going to bring in the dollars.
No.
So it's just unfortunately just a fact of life right now. That doesn't mean that won't be the case a year from now or 2 years from now as that AdSense revenue program continues to develop, but that's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm curious what you guys have said to people in a sense of setting expectations around what monetization on YouTube really looks like. Because there are other avenues right now beyond just AdSense on YouTube. So I feel like we should talk about some of those practically.
So many thoughts. I think the first thought, and usually what I like to just sort of, if we haven't talked about it yet, to usually sort of reinforce is that like this isn't like an overnight thing. It takes time. And I don't often see creators have a ton of success or like a ton of enjoyment when they're entering YouTube solely with the goal of monetizing an audience.
That's a great point.
It's not to say that monetizing an audience is bad or that money is bad. Like it's all amazing things, but I think it's really like primarily it has to be, we're giving the audience value. And from that value, there's opportunities to serve them even better and monetize those things too, whether that's a membership, whether that's a course, coaching, anything like that. But we see a lot of burnout with creators too, who jump in just solely like, I'm going to get monetized, I'm going to hit monetization, then AdSense is going to pay my bills. And then that's just, I'm going and going and going as fast as I can until I hit that point. And it's tough and it just takes time. And, like you said earlier, AdSense really is sort of the icing on the cake. So even from that perspective, it's kind of like, let's sort of just dig in and look a little further ahead, like set our sights a little further down the road. And what are the first best steps for us to take that will maybe set us up later down the road? I totally agree that email list is a great thing. That's sort of a let's kind of get that set up first, and we'll sort of get our foundation built so that as we finally start to build some momentum on our channel and reach more people, we'll more effectively be able to send over the right people, and then they sign up for the email list and work with us. And
I think
that kind of thing.
Live streams is another place to do it too. I know one of the coaches that works with us, they mentioned that they make a lot of their income or side income off of live streams alone on their channel. People donating through super chats. So, if people can engage with you, and it's the same thing on, when Twitch is a platform, like people love to give money to people, see their reactions, but do it live and be like, hey, I really want to support you. And they can highlight their message, whatever it may be. But you'd be surprised how willing people are to do that, especially in the moment.
Yeah, and if you have if you're in the how-to space and you start to develop a little bit of authority, I mean, I remember when Tim used to do the lives, on YouTube, so that you could have your question answered, they would just do a super chat. Yeah. There's a lot of really great opportunity there as well. I think though, you were talking about first steps a little bit, Sam, and I think the first step is really, it's all going to go back to your target audience.
Target audience. There it is.
The importance of the right target audience. Yeah.
It really is.
Especially when it comes to sales. So what are some of the things, when you think of like people newer to the space, and this is, I know you guys are sick of hearing us say this, but when it comes to sales and people parting with money, target audience becomes an even more important conversation. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they're going to part with their money when they feel like their problem that they're experiencing is potentially going to be solved.
Yeah. So, how do you know they're going to buy if you don't know who they are?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no point in me putting a product out there that nobody cares about. Right?
And let me put another spin on this. Let me put another spin on this. For those of you listening that are not convinced that you need multiple streams of income and, you're thinking, oh no, AdSense is the way I'm going to get this. Target audience is even more important, because if you don't understand target audience, don't just think, how am I going to get somebody to part with money? How are you going to get somebody to part with their time?
Yeah, that's even harder
to give you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, maybe we can, I think with first steps too, I think sometimes what's overlooked is sort of this newer YPP, the partnership program, the lower threshold at the 500 subscribers and 300 or 3,000 watch hours. It's one of those things that was like a big deal, and YouTube announced it a couple months ago. But since then, it's kind of almost like, okay, that's cool, but like, I'm not actually going to be able to make money until 1,000 subscribers, right? Like true monetization. And I think it's really untrue. And I think we've already sort of dipped into, that first threshold. That's what unlocks some of the super chats and some of the things that we've just talked about. But even at that first threshold, I think there's a lot of good opportunities that are sort of just unknown right now. So I'd be curious to hear from you guys, maybe with some of your creators, if you've had sort of that conversation or what that's looked like. What are some options at your disposal just from that kind of first earliest threshold?
Well, I feel like affiliate marketing can be done now through certain programs on YouTube, but it doesn't have to be. And that's what I would want, say younger creator, not necessarily age, but just younger, smaller in channel size, maybe hasn't quite been monetized yet. You can also make money through affiliate marketing and links off YouTube. The only caveat to that is just be cognizant that you're constantly setting a negative signal to the algorithm. So you have to really be intentional for when you do a call to action to that as well. But that would be one thought that I would have around that.
Yeah, the only one I can really jump back onto was just the live stream again. It was just like, that's once you get that threshold, I think you can do super chats. I think, can you do channel memberships of that threshold as well too?
Yep.
Yeah, then that's another one easy lift too. Honestly, I think that first threshold is more important than the full one, because you're essentially doing what is the smarter thing, is utilizing your audience to monetize rather than just worrying about AdSense in itself. Yeah,
I agree.
And you need an engaged audience too, right, guys?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Engaged enough to want to engage with some sort of call to action if you're going to give it.
Yeah. It forces you to think as a business right away. Like, you're forced to think about how do I interact with with my audience and think about what they want, how I can get them to engage. You're not just thinking about, you know, the easy lift, which would be the AdSense, right? So if you hit that threshold and you figured it out, by the time the AdSense comes along, that's like cake. You know, you're doing fine.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I think for me, one of the most exciting features at this lower threshold is a lot of the kind of newer YouTube shopping updates. You also unlock at that point the ability to link a storefront. So maybe you already have a store, you know, let's say you're a how-to channel, maybe you do like drawing or something like that, and you actually sell like products. Maybe you sell digital products too. You know, maybe you have a storefront, you're selling products, and you start jumping into this YouTube shopping feature where you can link, let's say you have a Shopify website, you can link your storefront to your YouTube account. And again, it's at the lowest threshold at 500 subscribers, 3,000 watch hours. You can start to link your products in the video, and they can buy that product without that negative viewer signal even happening. They can buy the product from YouTube and not leave the window. So I think that is super exciting, and it gives you like great opportunities, especially because they're going to start being able to link, whenever you give a call to action, you can link that product to a timestamp in your video, sort of like a card, kind of like that, but it pops up as a product. But yeah, at that lower threshold, if you already have some products on your website, you can already start monetizing your audience. I think really, I think as we kind of move into this next year too, I think that's going to continue we're going to see that more and more. I think that's a really, really great option.
Is that only certain platforms right now? Like, is it just Shopify or?
I think so. I think it's just Shopify. Do you know, Ingrid?
I don't have crystal clarity around it right now because it's relatively new.
Yeah.
And the one thing I do know about it is even like linking up to the affiliate marketing and stuff within some of the newer programs, because a lot of these programs, they've just been released just recently in the last several months. It's going to take a little bit too for that to, in my experience on YouTube, it takes a little bit before things really settle and they figure things out. And like, because I know that there have been a couple little glitches even in the affiliate marketing opportunity that they have on YouTube.
Yeah, we were just looking at that the other day.
Right, we were talking about that as a team the other day. So, give it some time. If it's not perfect at this time, just give it a little time. I think the biggest takeaway here is there are so many different ways to monetize on YouTube itself. No other platform does this.
Yeah.
Just want to point that out. Sure. There's no other social media platform that does this. YouTube does take its chunk, though, from certain things. Some it's not. Like the YouTube memberships, they take 30% from that versus Patreon, who takes 10 to 12 or 8 to 12. So you have to kind of, the only thing that I would encourage creators to do is just look at all your options and then just pick one and just know that that's not going to grow overnight either. Because nothing in this business really does. Yeah. And what were you saying, Blake?
So you got to build trust with your audience, like building the know, like, and trust factor with them to want to buy from you is a big, because like you said, you are Patreons with people because you want to support them, but you trust them enough to want to support them, right? I can't just throw something out there and expect someone to buy it right away. Same with any product, like you think of any big companies like Apple. I mean, people will jump at the new iPhone when there's not much of a difference because they trust the brand, right? So the same comes to you. Yeah,
I feel like with the memberships, I almost feel like that matters so much more. Like I almost think of memberships like subscribing, but like times 10 or times 100 because you're actually paying for it. But it's the same sort of mind. decision that happens as far as like, I kind of like this person, I feel like that happens for memberships too. It's sort of like, this person helped me, but I like them. So I want to subscribe to see more of them.
I feel like for us to really make this a valuable episode for somebody listening, we need to actually talk about the best call to actions, I think, around this, and like what truly will motivate somebody to move on that a little bit.
That's a good point. Yeah. Like how do you effectively get the person from YouTube to engage?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question. What would you say?
Yeah, Blake, what would you say?
You're throwing the spot here. I think it's a process. I think it's not something I can do right away. I think, like I mentioned, like, building that muscle or that trust with them. So, allowing the time to, like, when we talk about the 3-bucket strategy. So, like, discoverable videos. How do I find a new audience? How do I funnel them? How do I build a relationship with them with community content? Getting to know you, trusting you, relating to you, being accessible and like in your community tab and your live streams, so that they trust you enough that when they've built enough relationship with you, they're more willing to jump on those call to actions. And when it comes to that sales content, it could be a video, where the call to action for that could be, the entire video in itself. It's like your story, a problem you faced, how you overcame it, and now you want to help others. And this is what the product is and how it's going to help you. So again, drawing back to emotion too, like, if you can connect to emotion to that product and how it's affected you or affected others, testimonials in that with the call to action, that will help make that call to action when it comes along be that much stronger to persuade somebody like this is going to be beneficial for you because, that this reason.
Yeah. I feel too, it's like you really need to understand who your target audience is. You need to have a deep understanding of what problems they have, what struggles they have, and how is your thing going to solve that in an authentic way without feeling salesy and kind of sleazy a little. Because I feel like the people who do this really, really well, you lean into the emotional side of it a little bit, and it's okay to get a little vulnerable about that and be real. But when you are speaking from a place of service, I know that the sales can actually happen a lot quicker than feeling really forced.
Yeah.
Or I think of like the infomercials.
Yeah. Well, I feel like sometimes too, it's almost like a creator is trying to sell something that's not really related to their channel or maybe their value proposition. It's just sort of like a, by the way, you could buy this thing, and it's just sort of just feels like a commercial kind of a thing. So I feel like when you as the creator are excited about this thing and it's helped you personally, that just like shows through the screen. Like every time I watch a Mark Rober video and he talks about Crunch Labs, I'm just like,
I buy those.
They're so cool. Yeah. And it's like, cool. He gets so excited about that. It's almost like you just enjoy watching that because you see the excitement.
Jimmy with his Feastables. There's a reason it's not just about hawking chocolate.
Yeah.
He actually has, I don't remember exactly, celiac disease or something. Yeah. So he created something that he could actually eat, and there's a story behind that. There's primal branding behind that. Mm-hmm. And this actually brings us to a form of monetization that we have not talked about, and that's sponsorships and brand deals. And really, let's talk about that a little bit. We've touched on that in the past, but I know it's nowadays there are so many more and more ad dollars are coming to YouTube because companies are recognizing the potential, and plus think about the writer's strike going on.
True.
Yeah.
So YouTube is a viable place for ad dollars right now. But when I think of brand deals and sponsorships, they also want a return in some way. So how can creators help themselves in A, getting brand deals, or B, actually executing ones that feel authentic to where maybe the viewer is going to actually take action on it or even watch?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. I think for me, in a perfect world, I think ideally you would reach out to brands or sponsors where you're kind of already using their products, or their products just fit the niche that you're in. So like if it's a music channel, there's a guitar company, maybe you already play their guitar, but if you can make a relationship with that company, it's not going to feel inauthentic or just random or kind of weird. So I think that's a pretty good first step, where it's sort of like, I would enjoy this product even if I wasn't making a video. The audience can they can tell, they can see that.
Yeah.
It's also like, if would this product benefit your audience? You know, you again, it comes back to your target audience. If you know what they need, it's going to solve a problem for them. I think kind of having a sponsorship or a deal around that could be really helpful too. But I think also it's in the way that you approach a sponsor or a potential brand, like that matters a lot too. If you're going into it just with the intent of like, what can I get out of you sort of thing, or how can I say the right thing to get you to send me a free product or whatever that's going to look like. You know, it's just, I don't know, it's not really the best way to do it, especially if you want a longer term, maybe you want several brand deals from a brand you love. Like, you should really approach that with the long game too. Like, you should approach that kind of from a relationship standpoint, and maybe even start that not even thinking about what you could get from them, but more like, what can I do for you? Like, what are maybe some campaigns that you're running right now? What's kind of coming up the pike? I love your stuff, I use it anyway. How could I support you and help sort of bring some attention to your brand? They're going to be so much more likely to be like, well, yeah, this is what we're doing, this is cool. You know, they're going to be more willing to want to work with you. And maybe if, you know, the first 2 times, it's not this like super lucrative deal for you, you're still sort of building the building blocks so that down the road, there's just going to be more opportunities.
Yeah. One of the things that I would actually even offer at this point is, don't necessarily just send out a rate sheet. Have a conversation first. Get to know somebody. Because when you establish some sort of, it's no different than YouTube, really. If you can establish some sort of connection with a brand, and really just everything that Sam just said, you know, give them value. Maybe you pitch a couple ideas. If they see your excitement around that, you know, the money may not be as big a thing as you think it is. And you may actually be able to get more because they see somebody who's truly vested in it. And I think of some of my creators that I love on the platform that do a lot of brand deals and can effortlessly weave them into their content to where I'm not skipping ahead. They're trying to, you know, keep retention, but at the same time feel authentic about what it is that they're pitching. I, as a viewer, am more willing to watch and listen. And what good is the brand deal going to be if I skip ahead over it? Yeah.
And what kind of plays into everything we've said so far is, I think when you can sort of like integrate some of these best practices, even for the brand deals, you get people who like want to use your code. They'll like go out of your way, or out of their way, because they trust you. I'm actually getting ready to revamp my website, and I'm going to use Squarespace, and I know exactly who I'm going to go use their code to support, because I've seen them do the brand deal a bunch of times, and it's just, I know, like, and trust them. So it's cool. You can have that effect for your audience too.
Yeah, for affiliate marketing and everything. Yeah. I mean, there are so many opportunities. So when you start thinking about monetization, what I would actually encourage creators to do is make a little pie chart of yourself. Where do you want your dollars to come from? Really think about it a little bit more holistically versus just AdSense. And then start ideating what those steps are on how to get there. And if you need a coach, we got a good place for you to go.
Yeah, exactly. And we like, I'm involved in the one-on-one coaching. We have a vidIQ, which has been really phenomenal to watch a lot of creators who have been coming with a lot of, you know, problems, concerns, just need someone to lean on. And, myself, as well as some other amazing coaches that I get to work with, have done a lot to really alleviate and some of those pain points and give people a lot of direction and hope and insights that they can't get from people in their own sphere. And if that's something you're looking for and help with, in terms of, what's the best strategy to grow my channel, or just someone to chat through some of the common struggles or pitfalls you're dealing with as a creator, we'd love to do that with you with one-on-one coaching, where you get your own assigned coach to work with. And if that's something you're interested in, feel free to go to get.vidiq.com and sign up there. And one of us would be more than happy to get to know you, your story, and help you along your career journey.
Every week, we like to wrap up with a power tip for you. And today's power tip is talking about a feature that YouTube is going to be rolling out pretty soon called pause comments. So it's basically just going to give creators a little bit more options and customization when it comes to moderating their comments. So, right now we just have the option to either turn them off or have them on. But basically this pause comments feature is pretty interesting. I'm actually very curious to hear your guys' thoughts, but it seems like maybe a little bit of a niche use, but it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It'll give you the option after an upload. Let's say maybe the video's been live for a couple hours, you've had a couple comments roll in, and you just want to pause comments temporarily and not take away the comments that are already there. It'll still curate the comments that have already been left. It'll just pause it until you decide to unpause it or take any other action from there. So yeah, what do you guys think? Pretty interesting update coming out.
It is an interesting one. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, because I can't see a lot of use cases for it, but I do see it around creator mental health. And I do know that YouTube does a lot of things, really just with the creator, and not just the viewer in mind, but the creator also. Yeah. So that's where I'm thinking that kind of came from. So good job, YouTube.
Yeah,
those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I'd love to know whose idea it was and kind of chat with him and be like, so what were you thinking?
Yeah, what was the idea behind it?
Together quite
I'm
yet.
curious what led up to it.
Me too.
So it's obviously here for a reason.
Yeah.
So the only real use case scenario I could think of was, let's say you have a listicle video and maybe you talk through like 8 tips about gardening or something like that. Mm-hmm. And maybe one of the tips is just completely wrong. And some of the comments are like, hey, this is actually not correct or something. And then you just go into your editor and clip out that part and just remove it from the video. And then you turn the comments back on. That's the only case that I could see for something like that.
I still don't see how that would fit, though.
I don't know.
Just go do that anyways and come back and wrong.
I go to more bullying and harassment and things like that.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe he paused it and then I went to the filter and filtered some words out so people couldn't comment those. And then went back in. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
That makes way more sense.
Yeah, that makes
way more sense than my idea.
That's what I'm here to make sense of things.
But I love that YouTube is actually, really thinking about the creators first. So yeah, good job, YouTube. And on that note, thanks for listening to another Video Creators Podcast episode. See you next week.